This was supposed to be the perfect house. A stunning 19-room mansion in Westfield, New Jersey, with marble floors and a grand ballroom complete with a skylight. But inside this beautiful home, something was terribly, terribly wrong. For a whole month, the lights stayed on, day and night. Then, suddenly, darkness. Neighbors started to get worried. Where was the List family? No one had seen them for weeks. The phone went unanswered, mail piled up, and there were no signs of life. Finally, police entered the home and uncovered one of the most chilling crime scenes in American history. Inside the ballroom, they found 5 bodies, neatly lined up in sleeping bags. A haunting organ tune played on repeat through the home's intercom system. On a desk, a note explained everything. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was a cold, methodical plan, carried out by a man who believed he was saving his family's souls. This is the story of John Emil List, a father, a husband, and a killer who vanished without a trace for nearly 2 decades. To the outside world, the Lists were the picture of success. John List was a quiet, well-mannered accountant, a devout Lutheran, and a man who wore a suit and tie even when he was just at home. He had married a beautiful widow, Helen, and together they raised 3 children, 16-year-old Patricia, 15-year-old John Jr., and 13-year-old Frederick. John's elderly mother, Alma, also lived with them in the mansion. They were a respected, church-going, model American family. But behind that perfect facade, their world was crumbling. John had secretly lost his high-paying job, but he couldn't bear the shame of admitting it. Every morning, he'd put on his suit, kiss his wife goodbye, and pretend to go to work. In reality, he spent his days at the train station, reading newspapers and hiding the fact that he was financially ruined. His wife Helen was battling alcoholism and depression, complicated by untreated syphilis from her first marriage, which was slowly affecting her mind. His daughter Patricia dreamed of being an actress, a career her strict father considered sinful and immoral. Through it all, John's religious fanaticism grew. He started to believe that the world around them was drowning in sin, and that God was testing him. By late 1971, John was completely desperate. The mortgage was unpaid, their bank accounts were empty, and he was terrified his family would lose their home, their reputation, and their dignity. But instead of asking for help, he decided to take control in the most horrific way imaginable. He convinced himself that if his family died then, they would go straight to heaven. But if they lived, they would face poverty, shame, and the moral corruption of the world. In his twisted mind, killing them was saving them. On the morning of November 9, 1971, John kissed his children goodbye as they left for school. Then, he walked into the kitchen and shot his wife, Helen, in the back of the head. A few moments later, he went upstairs and killed his mother, Alma, with a single bullet. Then he waited. As Patricia and Frederick came home from school that afternoon, he greeted them calmly at the door before shooting them both in the back of the head. They never saw it coming. Finally, late that evening, his oldest son, John Jr., arrived home from soccer practice. The boy fought for his life, so his father shot him multiple times. It was a complete massacre. But John List wasn't finished. He methodically dragged their bodies to the ballroom and laid them side by side in sleeping bags. He cleaned the crime scenes, ate dinner, and then sat down to write a 5-page confession to his pastor. In it, he explained that he'd killed his family to ensure they reached heaven before the world could corrupt their souls. He then turned on the intercom system, set it to play religious organ music, and simply walked out of the house, disappearing into the night. It took nearly a month for anyone to discover the crime. Neighbors had noticed the lights were on constantly, and then, one by one, the bulbs started burning out. The mail piled up. The children's school called, concerned. Finally, the police broke in. What they found shocked even the most hardened officers. The house was frozen in time. Dinner plates were still on the table, and that haunting religious music echoed through the halls. And in the ballroom, 5 bodies, lying in order, like some macabre final family portrait. But John List was gone. Investigators found his car at JFK Airport, but there was no flight record under his name. He had vanished into thin air, becoming a ghost for the next 2 decades. John List completely reinvented himself. He adopted the name Robert Bob Clark, moved to Denver, Colorado, and found work as an accountant again. He even joined a local Lutheran church, just as he had before. He later remarried a woman named Dolores, who had no idea about his horrific past. They bought a modest home and lived a quiet, respectable life. He went to church, hosted barbecues, and blended seamlessly into suburban America. Meanwhile, back in Westfield, the mansion stood empty, a dark monument to his crime. The 1970s bled into the 80s, and still, there was no trace of John List. Until one night in 1989, when everything changed. On May 21, 1989, the TV show America's Most Wanted aired an episode about John List, the man who murdered his family and disappeared 18 years earlier. But this time, they had a new weapon in their arsenal. A brilliant forensic sculptor named Frank Bender had created an age-progressed clay bust of what John List might look like now. Bender studied old photos, medical history, and personality profiles, and the result was chillingly accurate. The episode aired across the country, and in Denver, a woman watching TV froze. Her neighbor looked exactly like the bust on her screen. She immediately called the police. Within days, the FBI knocked on the door of the man calling himself Robert Clark. He denied everything at first, but fingerprints don't lie. After 18 years of freedom, the man who thought he had committed the perfect crime was finally caught. During his trial, John List showed no emotion. He claimed he didn't enjoy killing his family but insisted it was the only way to save their souls from a corrupt world. He calmly told the court, "I feel my family is in heaven, and I'm sure I'll join them there someday." The jury was not convinced. John List was found guilty on 5 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms. He spent the rest of his life in prison, dying in 2008 at the age of 82. To the very end, he never expressed true remorse, only saying he wished he'd handled things differently. The List mansion stood for years before it was finally torn down, but locals say the ground where it once stood still feels haunted. It's a chilling story of a man who tried to play God, a father who mistook murder for mercy, and a family erased in the name of a twisted faith. The John List case is a terrifying reminder that monsters don't always lurk in the shadows. Sometimes they sit right beside us in church, shake our hands at work, and live right next door, behind a perfect white fence. If this story sent chills down your spine, please show some support by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history's darkest chapters. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think John List truly believed he was saving his family? Or was it pure evil hiding behind a mask of faith? Thanks for watching.